Hej, jag heter Mikael Arlund och jag är chef för Gustavianum, Uppsala universitetsmuseum som ni ser här bakom mig. Nu har det gått några månader sedan vi stängde museet för renovering och det kommer att dröja ganska länge innan vi öppnar igen. Men nu är det inte så att Gustavianum har gått in i någon törnrosasömn under den här perioden, utan som ni hör så pågår det ju febril aktivitet där inne. Och det handlar framförallt om att vi vill skapa ett bättre inomhusklimat för våra föremål. Så att de ska må bättre, så att vi kan bevara dem samtidigt som vi visar dem i framtiden. Och den här perioden ger oss ju också chans att inte bara vårda byggnaden utan också ta hand om våra saker så att de är i toppskikt när vi kommer att visa dem igen i det nyöppnade museet. Så vi ska titta på lite grann hur det kan se ut. Följ med mig här.
Hello, my name is Emma Hocker. I'm Gustavianums conservator, and I'm here today talking to Linda Kvarnström from Uppsala Cathedral's stained glass conservation studio. And Linda has got the task of conserving some of the objects in our collections. These are some stained glass windows from medieval times, dating to the early 14th century. They were made in Gotland and were in Hablingberg Church in Gotland. The reason they came into our collections was in 1825 they were damaged by a storm in Gotland, and it eventually became too expensive to have them repaired, and so they were sold to they were given to the glazier at the time, who later passed them on to professors at the university. So that's why we have them in the university's art collections. So Linda, what makes these so unique?
Well, the fact that we have very little stained glass in Sweden and the Nordic countries makes it very unique. We have even less medieval stained glass, and especially if you compare to the rest of Europe. 90% of the medieval stained glass comes from Gotland, like this does, in the all of the Nordic countries, and it's very unique.
Okay, and how are they made, these pieces?
The color comes from the glass itself, and then you paint with vitreous paints. You make the tracing lines first, and then you make the shading. And they're fired in the kiln so that the paint is actually fused to the glass surface. We also have silver stain, which actually gives stained glass its English names. Yes. And it's silver nitrate, and the silver irons actually dyes the glass yellow. So that's the only time you can paint a colour, otherwise the colour comes from the glass itself.
Oh, right, interesting. Okay. And now you've had a chance to look at them. Do they have any special resonance with you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you can tell that the craftsmanship was very high, especially if you look at the sword, where they've actually abraded away part of the red flash to reveal the white substrate glass, so you can see the blood pouring down the sword, which I find very amusing and interesting, and it takes a lot of work to abrade away glass.
That brings me on to the question of the motif. What is represented here?
Oh, so this is a scene from the Bible called The Massacre of the Innocents, and this is Herod sitting on his throne, and he didn't like that Jesus Christ had been born, and the three magi wouldn't tell him where Christ was, so he ordered all boys 2 years or younger to be murdered. So what you see here are a few boys being impaled on swords, and then there's one sitting in the soldier's arms, bleeding profusely from his wounds. And you can also see a small animal under the throne, which I don't know why it's there, but I think it might be to tell you that Herod is actually not a very nice man.
As if we didn't know, right? But the three glass panels have come here to be conserved. Now, how do you go about conserving something like this?
It all depends on why they need conserving. These panels are very precious, so we try to do as little as possible to them. but in the same time make sure they're safe. So the main reason these needed to be taken care of was that the lead, it was bowing. It was actually almost vibrating or flowing in the wind. So we are removing all the old putty, cleaning the glass surface, edge bonding all the cracks in the glass. You can see a few here.
Yes.
We will not mend the cracks in the lead though, because then we risk melting the medieval lead. And then that's basically it. So it doesn't sound a lot, but it's very
time-consuming. I
Yes.
do understand. Yes, yes. And do you find, as a conservator, I know myself, that because you're one of the first people to look at this in detail, you find yourself getting into the head of the maker?
Oh, definitely. I just, it's so interesting because you can almost feel, you can get into the mindset of the maker.
Yes.
You can feel the joy emanating from the stained glass panel in this case, I think, because it's just the amount of work we put into it, and to know it's high up in a window somewhere in a church and no one else will see it for up close for several hundred years maybe.
Someone who took pride in his work, as I'm sure you do. So we look forward to seeing these in our newly renovated museum in a couple of years' time. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.